Brains are small, but who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most?
The ongoing saga of televised sparring between political commentators and media personalities took a sharp, unforgettable turn when Greg Gutfeld took aim at longtime daytime TV host Joy Behar, what was initially teased as another light exchange of jabs between ideological rivals quickly transformed into a public unraveling that many didn't see coming. Known for her sharp wit and unapologetic opinions, Joy has long been a staple of daytime television, often using her platform on The View to speak her mind. But this time, it wasn't Joy firing the shots, it was Greg Gutfeld. And what followed wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was, in many ways, a televised dismantling. It all started with a brief segment in which Joy took a swipe at Gutfeld, suggesting he was irrelevant and unfamiliar to her. On air, she feigned confusion over who he was, questioning why his name came up in the first place. This kind of dismissive sarcasm is typical fare for Behar, who's built a career on poking fun at political opponents.
Terrible! Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott dropped by the Furry Five earlier today.
But Greg Gutfeld, known for his laser-sharp sarcasm and calm, calculated delivery, took it as a challenge. Rather than firing back with a flippant remark, Gutfeld carefully crafted a response that would become the centerpiece of an entire segment. Using his signature dry humor and surgical commentary, he unraveled Joy's remarks piece by piece, not in a rant, but in a composed, cutting series of monologues that played less like jokes and more like a roast with academic footnotes. He began by mocking her pretense of not knowing who he was, suggesting that her denial was about as believable as her political takes. The jokes were sharp, but what truly caught the audience's attention was the steady erosion of Joy's usual confidence as the barbs continued to land. Gutfeld's commentary wasn't just funny, it was purposeful. He used Joy's own history of contradictions, questionable statements, and previous segments on The View as material. From past controversies to awkward live moments, nothing was off limits. Yet somehow, he managed to maintain a tone that avoided outright cruelty. It was satirical, certainly, but polished.
And I thought the U.S. had a distinct policy against torture. He took the opportunity to call them out over crap Joy Behar.
The kind of takedown that feels rehearsed yet effortless, like a comedian who's practiced their set for years, finally delivering it on the biggest stage. What followed was a rare spectacle, a moment. In daytime TV where the subject of ridicule seemed to falter under the pressure, reports from inside the studio where The View was filmed noted that Joy, typically composed and armed with quick comebacks, was visibly rattled. Her expressions changed. Her signature posture, leaned back, poised with a sly smile, gave way to stiffness and silence. She struggled to fire back with her usual flair, and while no tears were shed on air, there was a noticeable shift in energy. The verbal battle that had once seemed like a fun sparring session turned into something far more personal. For viewers, the moment was surreal. On one side, a daytime veteran known for dishing out critique with flair and confidence. On the other, a satirical news host who used humor as a scalpel. The outcome? A total role reversal. Suddenly, Joy wasn't the one in control. She wasn't the one with the last word. Gutfeld, armed with old quotes, public clips, and his signature smirk, had not only seized the narrative, he flipped the entire script. The internet reacted swiftly.
Behar recently said about him, specifically that he doesn't get systemic racism, which is like saying Brian Stelter.
Social media was flooded with commentary, memes, and GIFs celebrating Gutfeld's precision and Joy's rare silence. Clips of the moment trended across platforms. The confrontation became a talking point across political shows, not just for what was said, but for what it represented. The vulnerability of even the most seasoned media voices when challenged by an opponent who does their homework. It didn't take long before media pundits were debating the event not as a throwaway insult exchange, but as a significant moment in the ongoing culture war between political media factions. But perhaps what made the moment resonate even more was what it revealed about the human side of public personas. Joy Behar, often seen as fiery and impenetrable, showed for the first time in recent memory a crack in that armor. Whether it was genuine emotion, frustration, or the surprise of being outmaneuvered on live television, the moment humanized her, in a way few others could. It reminded viewers that behind the bold takes and sassy comebacks lies a person susceptible to embarrassment, to pressure, to being publicly wrong. And Greg Gutfeld? His stock rose immediately. Already a rising figure in late-night commentary, this moment cemented his role as a formidable opponent to the traditional mainstream media personalities. The incident was viewed by many as proof that satire and humor—
One of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly it deserves—
when done correctly, can be more potent than yelling or outrage. Gutfeld had accomplished in a few minutes what some critics had attempted for years: to visibly shake a media veteran without ever losing his cool. Following the exchange, rumors began swirling around Joy's backstage reaction. Some sources claimed she was deeply bothered and even considered walking off the set during commercial break. Others downplayed the event, suggesting she brushed it off and returned to normal within minutes. But public perception leaned toward the former. For fans of both personalities, the question wasn't just about who won the exchange, it was about what the moment symbolized. Was it the beginning of a new phase in Joy's media presence, one where her authority could be challenged more openly? Or was it a temporary misstep, a brief stumble in an otherwise steady career? Regardless, what remains undeniable is the impact that Gutfeld's calculated approach had, not just on Joy, but on the wider media environment. It reminded pundits across the political spectrum that no platform is immune to critique, and no voice too loud to be questioned. What also became evident in the aftermath was how quickly the digital age can elevate a single moment into a national conversation. Within hours, the story had been picked up by major blogs, YouTube channels, and trending topics across multiple platforms. Think pieces were written, podcasts discussed it, reactions were filmed. The echo chamber of modern media magnified the
further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
Moment until it was no longer just a viral clip. It was a cultural moment. In the days that followed, Gutfeld addressed the incident again, this time in a more reflective tone. While not issuing an apology, he acknowledged that humor can walk a fine line. Still, he stood by every word. Joy, meanwhile, made no official statement. She returned to the View with her usual bravado, but eagle-eyed viewers noted that her tone had shifted slightly. The trademark edge was still there, but a hint more measured, as if even she knew that the game had changed. This wasn't just a verbal scuffle between two public figures. It was a glimpse into the shifting dynamics of media. Culture, where legacy voices can be challenged, and where clever, composed dissent can outperform scripted commentary. It's about the battle for influence in a world where truth is often secondary to perception, and where the smallest crack in a persona can lead to a flood of scrutiny. So where does that leave us? For Joy Behar, perhaps this was a necessary moment of reckoning, a reminder that no one, no matter how experienced or beloved, is immune to critique. For Greg Gutfeld, it was a masterstroke.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Gutfeld, I'm sorry, not ringing the bell.
Usually at the airport.
Yeah.
Proof that satire still has a place in a crowded, often loud media landscape. And for the rest of us watching, it was a moment of clarity wrapped in comedy, a flash of honesty in the middle of the scripted noise. This wasn't just TV, it was something more. A real-time reminder that confidence without self-awareness can be fragile, and that sometimes the sharpest minds aren't the loudest but the most precise. What do you think? Did Greg go too far, or was this a much-needed reality check for Joy Behar? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because in the world of televised takedowns, there's always another round coming.